Hello, Craig.
It's on you, it's all on me. Can't you see? It's on you, it's all on me. You and me, can't you? It's on you, it's on me.
Hey, Craig. Right or wrong, we don't care. Win or lose, we don't care. We don't care. We don't care.
Hey, Jeff.
We don't care.
We don't care.
I know. We don't say that enough. We used to say that. Like, remember on like our first shows, we'd be like,
Yeah.
because we don't care. We would
don't
just say
care.
that sort of over. That was like our theme was we don't care, which I think works, for a while, but now we're on episode 251. I mean, clearly we care on some level, right?
Yeah.
I don't think
Yeah.
we can get away with saying we don't care anymore. Sorry, I caught you
Unfortunately, no.
mid sip there. My bad.
Yeah.
But we don't care. We
Unfortunately.
caught you mid sip.
We don't care.
We don't care.
Yep. And this is podcast versus everyone. We don't care. I'm
We
Craig
don't care.
Powers.
Nobody
this
cares,
is episode
Craig.
251, as Jeff
Yeah.
just said. With me, as usual, is Jeff Newser. Jeff, we're a
Yeah.
little bit late on this because we kind of recording fell through last week. But yeah, so there was spring football's over now.
Yes.
Couldn't make it to Pullman for the spring game.
Nope.
Which unfortunately meant for the first time in about, I don't know, over a decade, like at least since the Pac-12 network started. First time in, 15 years-ish?
Yeah.
Since I wasn't at the spring game, I couldn't watch the spring game.
Yeah.
So I don't have a ton of thoughts that were based on video. But
Why is that, Craig?
because it wasn't televised.
And also there was no stream, and there were no really
stream,
extended
nothing.
highlights that were worth watching.
And we complained last time about the lack of spring football highlights, about just keeping everything a big secret.
Yeah, I'll be honest. I thought when we had that conversation, I thought that there was a plan to stream the game like on YouTube or something, and I guess it wasn't even really like a game. It was, spring showcase now is what people do, but yeah, like whatever it was, like it didn't, they didn't broadcast anything, so we did get some sort of secondhand or reports from. I guess they're technically firsthand reports, right? Because like people like Michael and some of the other people in the Slack, posted some updates. But also, I think kind of notably for me, I don't know if you thought this as well, but like they didn't post very many updates, which to me was sort of indicative of I don't know, man. They're just maybe there wasn't that much.
There wasn't a lot going on.
Noteworthy going on, where it was sort of like, ooh, this stuck out, or I noticed this. So the game was awesome, and nobody can tell me it wasn't because nobody saw it. So I'm just going to say it was awesome. Everybody's amazing. We're going to win the Pac-12, and we're heading to the CFP, and nobody can prove me otherwise because like nobody saw it. So
yeah. So, but from based on what we saw, you would hope, what we heard from practice reports, from the spokesman, from Coug fan, from Greg and Jamie, it is, the defense was looking much further ahead than the offense.
Yep.
And the quarterback situation didn't appear that anyone was really taking control of that. And not because it was some Gardner Minshew, Anthony Gordon competition where it was a difficult decision because two guys are balling out. This is more of there's multiple guys who appear to have some deficiencies that are preventing them from taking the job outright. Now we kind of
Yeah.
assume that Pinnock is going to be the guy, the way they brought him
Maybe.
in and the way they publicized his signing. But
Yes.
what I saw in the Slack is people were like, he's very short,
Mm-hmm.
and it was short enough that they were concerned.
Yeah.
Now, WSU, we're not really used to having a ton of short quarterbacks over the years. I
Mm-hmm.
think Jaden Delora seemed short, but he was still over 6 foot.
Yeah.
And so that could probably be striking because I think this Pinnock's about 5'10" in his cleats. Um, but yeah, that's the fact that it seemed that maybe Eshelman better at making the throws, Pinnock maybe better at making plays. You would kind of hope it would just be Pinnock was the one he's the one with starting experience who has put up numbers in FCS. But that didn't seem to happen at all during spring ball.
Mm-hmm.
And Jeff, I will say, given that, now defense sounds like it's further ahead than we would have imagined. We talked about that a few weeks ago. But this is an offensive coach. The quarterback's going to be essential. Jeff, where are you at? How are you feeling about this quarterback situation right now?
I mean, if we're talking like panic level, like 1 to 10, I'm not at a 10, but I'm maybe at like a 7. You
Yeah.
know, a lot of that is, and look, maybe I'm putting too much weight on past experiences. So like it was the last time we had a first year coach at WSU that had this kind of a sort of quarterback mess during spring ball was Mike Leach in 2012, and it
Yeah.
was bad, right? Like, we went to that spring game up there, up at Joe Albee, and we were so fucking fired up, and we're like, yeah, we're gonna watch throw the ball around, we're gonna get our first glimpse of the air raid, and it was like, just wet farts all over the field, like sharts, like just it was terrible. It was really windy, so we blamed it on the wind, right? Like
Oh
it
yeah,
was.
and we thought that we had returning guys
Yeah,
like
we had
Tool.
Jeff Toole was coming back, right? Like we thought,
Yeah,
and
and
then
so
we got,
and
and we
you had
remember hearing stuff that
Holiday
it was like, well,
was
maybe Connor
freshman.
Halliday is going to give him a run, and
Yeah.
it was sort of like okay, and then it was it neither of them were good, like neither of them were good, and then we were like, well, we got all summer, they got all summer to get it repped up, they got all fall camp to get it going, and then and then they sucked, right?
And
Like
that first BYU game. Woo.
they were terrible in that first year, right? Now, I will say, like, the comparisons I think sort of end there. The offense that Kirby Moore wants to run is not, it's not the air raid, it's not intricate like that. It's not needing to rep it 80,000 times because you just need it to get automatic with all your different options. Obviously, it's not going to be that. But at the same time, like I think it's fair to say, if neither one of them looked particularly good right now, I think it's fair to, I think it's, are the odds better that they'll be really good in the fall or that they'll be pretty bad? And like the odds are better that, it might be a struggle. Now, is that going to be as much of an issue? Right. Kirby Moore comes with, this reputation from Missouri of, leading this very run heavy offense. We've got
Right.
these 3 really good running backs. I think we agree that, we got 3 really good running backs. The offensive line looked pretty okay, I from what it seemed, despite rotating guys around and some injuries and things like that. So maybe it's less of an issue than I think. Our friend Jamie Vinnick from Coug Fan, he points out that 2, maybe 3 of the top 2 or 3 receivers didn't practice. Tony Freeman,
Right.
paramount among them. Like, how do you okay? Jamie was kind of using that. I won't say using it as an excuse. That makes it sound way worse than it is. But he was sort of like, hey, this, we have to remember they're not throwing to their top receivers during spring. Are you buying that as a major reason why they might not have looked as good this spring as we would like?
I think that could be part of it. And definitely, if guys aren't getting open for you, it's gonna be a lot tougher. And if our secondary is locking the receivers down, it's gonna make any of them look bad. And I don't think Pinnock doesn't seem to have like this huge arm talent that can throw guys open. So maybe that you can be a little bit concerned about. But maybe, yeah, there's some of that. You can all, temper it. Still, you would wish a guy could make plays. Some people posit that maybe Pinnock, if when he actually has to be tackled, his legs could be much more of a
Mm-hmm.
weapon than when you're playing touch football and
Yeah,
in practice.
that's fair.
So there's those things, but still, just the fact that no one took control of the job, no one impressed even very much at times. It's a little concerning, and yeah, and if magically Tony Freeman and the other top receivers come back and open everything up for them, then fantastic. But it also means you got these new quarterbacks who didn't get reps with them,
Mm-hmm.
and you're gonna go in, just going with your August practices, getting those reps in,
Yeah.
and obviously some are uh 7-man stuff and things like that, but yeah, it's I could see that as part of the reason, but I would hope that still they could overcome
Yeah.
some of that and look better.
The one thing that I kind of like that I'm trying to sort of separate is like I can be concerned about the quarterback play to some degree while also maybe not being super concerned about the offense. Like if that kind of makes sense. Like we've been such a quarterback dependent school for so long. Um Obviously this last fall, the coach we had was trying to move us away away from that very
Yeah.
intentionally, right? But I have a lot more confidence under Kirby Moore with a more experienced line, with some of the transfers they brought in. Maximus McCree, who's come in from Washington, right? And he's moving over to right tackle. And Jamie and Greg both said he looked pretty good. Huge, massive guy, as befitting his name, right? And it's like, okay, like if we really can move lines and run the ball. I mean, I guess I would say this. If we look at last year's team and they're able to run the ball 20% better, let's say, right? They're able to run the ball 20. Like, how different does that offense look with the, sort of iffy quarterback play we got all year if they're able to run the ball, 20% better? And I think it looks, dramatically different, right? And so if that is what we get this year with quarterback play that, again, might not be the top shelf stuff that we're used to, maybe it's not as much of an issue. So I guess like if my panic level is, like a 7 for the quarterback, like it's maybe like a 5 for the offense or a 4, because I think there's ways to mitigate that given Kirby Moore's history, I guess.
Yeah, and absolutely. Um, and yeah, that's that's what we're going to be looking at in fall practice. Does the offense, looking better, and because it starts right off the bat. You got UW right off the bat. You don't have an
Yes.
FCS soft landing there. Um,
But I
so
do love the fact that our defense is looking pretty top
yes,
notch going into that game. Like
yes,
that's honestly, I feel better going into that game on the idea that the defense is ahead of the offense, which might seem weird, but like Washington's offense is going to be, I don't know if it's going to be great, because they obviously lost like their
well,
top
yeah,
two skill guys,
yeah.
other than the quarterback who they lost and then came back, and we had a good laugh about that a while back. But the fact that they're, Jed Fish, good offensive coach, they've got other skilled guys. Their offense is going to be just fine, I think.
We
So
haven't we
having
haven't got a stop against them, and
yeah,
it'll be nearly 2 years by the time.
since a fourth down play 2 years ago was the last time we stopped him, I think.
Yeah, that was the last.
I'm
Haven't
I'm pretty
yeah,
sure. I'm pretty
It'll be a
sure.
while till in Pullman
Yeah.
till it happens. It's been a while
So
in Pullman since we saw a stop.
yeah. So I feel better about our chances in the game if the defense is kind of ready to go, and maybe even if the offense isn't quite where it needs to be. I think our chances are better in that scenario than they are in the flip scenario, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it
I don't
makes
know if that
sense.
makes sense at all, but
Especially how the scar of last year's Apple Cup, where it's just like if we got to be able to stop them at some point, because even
just
the offense had a
once. Yeah.
decent game, and that
Yeah.
still didn't matter
Yeah.
at all.
No,
But
not at all.
yeah, it's I get that. So football, they put that to bed for a couple months at this point now. But now moving on, obviously, David Riley is still putting together his roster. And since we last talked, there's been 3 more guys added in Jalen Harrell. Hopefully I don't mess up the names. Laji Dembele and Jamari Phillips.
Yep.
All guys, Jeff, off the top. And it seemed like a theme with this group, particularly this group of 3 guys that were highly regarded out of high school.
Mm-hmm.
And guys that if you saw their ratings out of high school and WSU landed them as freshmen, you would have been absolutely thrilled. Like Jamari Phillips would have been one of the best recruits in
he
in
might have
team
been number
history.
1. He might have been the
Yeah,
number 1 recruit in program history if we'd landed him out of high school.
But then there's the caveat there that they have played at least one season
Yes.
of Division I basketball at either in the Big East for Harrell, in the Mountain West for Dembele, and in the Big Ten for Phillips. And
Big Ten.
yeah, I know it was hard for me to say. I almost just said Oregon instead of saying the Big
Played
Ten.
at Oregon, fucking Big Ten.
But
Whatever.
that Midwestern town of Eugene.
Yes, classic Big Ten school. Anyway,
and then none of them particularly impressed. I say the guy that Phillips is interesting in that he shot a ton of threes, was primarily a 3-point shooter, literally 61 of his 73 field goal attempts.
I was gonna say primarily, I think even undersells it.
Yeah,
almost exclusively, Kyle Korver-ish,
but still, was only hitting just under 30%,
Yeah,
which
not good.
You would think that a guy that was hoisting that much would be better. Altman obviously saw him, thought he could do it, and just kept putting him out there because he did play a decent amount of minutes, played 23% of available minutes, so he wasn't a total afterthought.
It's about
26 games.
It's about 10 minutes a game.
Yeah. And yeah, so that's not, you look at a guy that was a high 4-star recruit out of high school.
He was a top 50. He was a top 50 kid. The only other top 50 kid we've ever had, as far as I know, is Klay Thompson. That's it. That's the kind of high school recruit this guy was. He was in that sort of level. So when Oregon landed him, that was a really, really, really big deal. What's wild is what you said. He was almost exclusively a 3-point shooter. You definitely don't see guys don't get recruiting scores like that if they are just 3-point shooters in high school. So all these guys that are coming down. So you mentioned the 3 that have signed, since our last show. They're all obviously coming down for a reason, right? Which is kind of what you were saying. There's a reason why they didn't come to us out of high school. So they're all coming down for a reason. Phillips, again, 2 years at Oregon, almost all 3s, didn't make them at nearly a high enough rate. Now, is that because of what he's being asked to do? Is that because he just decided he was a 3-point shooter? Is it because is it because of randomness? Like, okay, so 23, like I said, that's like 10 minutes a game. 63 point attempts over the course of a 30 game season is a couple of per game, right? So like, I mean, you could probably find a lot of shooters who go on a 30%, a 20 for, or an 18 for 60, whatever he made, right? Something like that. Like whatever it is he made, you can probably find that kind of a stretch for just about any player who shoots like, your prolific shooters are going to shoot, 150 threes in a
150,
season,
yeah.
right? So it's kind of like, maybe this was just like, variance, right? Like he just,
Right.
it's just, he's a really, really good shooter and it just didn't show any games. I don't know. I think that for a guy to be super valuable like him, I think he's got to, get some twos. So we'll see whether that's really there. But if, he can reclaim the 3-point touch, or if he makes good on whatever it is that Dana Altman was seeing in practice that would cause him to, put him in this role around Oregon's offense, which of course sort of was centered around a couple of bigs, to be a floor spacer, I mean, maybe that's there. Maybe he's got the ability to move. Maybe he's got the ability to get to the basket. I don't know. We'll see. It's a good risk to take. I mean, and I think that's the theme of a lot of this stuff. Like all of these guys are risks in some way. So,
Yeah, we've talked about that. This is all high upside, kind of low floor type stuff where like is now if we look at that now at Dembele, he's he's in his fourth year. He's coming in as his fourth year.
yeah,
And he played for UNLV where he barely,
he got
must
hurt.
have been, he was hurt.
Yeah, I got hurt.
But he was at Iowa for some pretty good Iowa teams, and
Yep.
his sophomore year, now he's listed as a center. He is not a big defensive rebounder.
Mm-mm.
Um,
Not a big shot blocker.
not a huge shot blocker. Doesn't get to the free throw line a ton. He seems much more of a slasher, of a jump shooter. I mean, he's taken throughout his career, pretty decent portion of his shots are 3-pointers. Pretty solid 3-point shooter his sophomore year at Iowa. Pretty solid offensive numbers overall.
Yep.
And so there's some skill there. You can see offensive skill that you think would definitely fit with Riley. Now you're thinking the guy 6'8", 255. Oh, good, we're getting like a banger inside. That's a big weight for a 6'8" guy,
Mm-hmm.
but he just doesn't profile that. Now he does seem to have some offensive rebounding capability. So that's a positive. But yeah, there's some positives about him for
Mm-hmm.
sure. Now, does he fill that hole that we definitely need in the middle, in terms of height and the ability to protect the rim, the ability to rebound defensively? Absolutely not. He is not that guy. But I think he could be a very good offensive player under Riley, and that's positive.
It is a huge positive. And honestly, I'm going to make a comparison here that like, this can be like, really? But honestly, he's a lot like Andy Okafor was 2 years ago, but with the ability to step out and shoot a three. Like
Yeah.
similar size, maybe not quite as good of a shot blocker, right? We know Andy Okafor can block some shots. This guy, not a supernatural shot blocker, but until this year, Andy Okafor wasn't a great defensive rebounder, but a pretty good offensive rebounder. So I think it's a kind of a really similar style, but this guy can step out. And I think that's kind of the theme of if we look at last year's roster, again, there were so many times where we just looked and went, like, I don't know what, Riley was thinking in terms of how these pieces fit together. Like, how does this even go together? He's got an offense he wants to run, and right now he's got a center who does none of the things that he actually wants his centers to be able to do, right? If we think of Ethan Price and Dane Erickstrip, which obviously Erickstrip played mostly the 4, but like, if we just think of those two guys as being sort of like the ideal 5-4 type guy in Riley's system, you've got to be able to move inside, outside, inside, outside. Like you can't be just painted, parked in the paint. You got to be able to move inside, outside, and it's this really fluid, almost like dance, right? Of moving in and out and in and out, and ball goes in and out and goes around and goes in and comes out and, whatever until you get your easy shot. And so Dembele is going to get you that because he can hit a three. One guy actually, I just realized this on the list that we're looking at. Not on the list is Tyler Kropp, who is another guy who signed after we recorded last time. So that's another center who does similar things to that. He's the transfer from Northwestern. He's again transferring down. Didn't have a great first season at Northern, was kind of in and out of the lineup, but he's kind of exciting because he does a lot of the same things, just kind of, again, being able to, mostly be a 2-point presence, but can definitely step out and hit a three if he needs to. It seems like Riley really prioritized those things in his big men this time around. Obviously, he did that with, Yalaho or whatever. So it's not like he abandoned it with the previous roster, but I don't know. It just seems like he kind of returned to his archetypes, which, our friend, Bryce Hendricks used to love to use that word when he would, scout people, is like this archetype. And it's like, well, we kind of look at our centers now, and we've got these guys who are going to play center who are going to be that Ethan Price, inside outside archetype. They're not going to live at the 3-point line, but if they do move out to the 3-point line, you're going to have to guard them. And I think that's an important piece of this here, because we saw so many times last year where, Indy Okafor, God bless him, no fault of his own necessarily, but like, the works just kind of get gummed up when you got a big in there who can only sort of occupy, these 10 square feet, right?
Yeah, by by necessity, Eddie started kind of stepping out and being more of a face-up player, taking guys off the dribble a little more just to clear out of that post position. I think at times when we saw their offense moving better, like working better towards the end of the season, it was when ND kind of stopped being that low block guy, which didn't make any sense. So when we actually saw the offense cooking like we wanted it to, around kind of mid to last half of the season, he definitely changed it. So, yeah, like if Riley's going to be who he is, then at least he should be striving to be the best version of who he is, and having guys like this, like Kropp and Dembele, who can step out, now hopefully they can kind of overachieve what they had done before on the rebounding, because that was such an issue last year.
Yeah.
And so if they could improve on that, both of them, I doubt either one was, in their minutes, the primary rebounder.
Yeah.
So that's always a thing. Kropp, a little bit more of a shot blocker.
Yeah, and rebounder. His percentages weren't great at Northwestern, but like the scouting report on him. So, Basket Under Review is a great website that has a newsletter, and they do awesome work. They thought Kropp was actually one of kind of a steal for Washington State, in terms of him transferring down. They loved him. He had played in the U19, FIBA U19s. Played against, the best guys that the United States had to offer. He's actually playing for Argentina, because apparently his mom is Argentinian. So he was playing with Argentina, and he played fantastic. I think he averaged a double-double. Just played really, really, really well. So there's a feeling that there's some untapped potential there. I think he's very likely the starting center. I think Dembele is probably the primary backup. And then I think, there probably maybe Fraser Roxburgh, maybe gets some minutes there at center. But I think you're mostly going to see those two guys. Maybe Dominic Robinson, redshirted last year. He's 6'10". Maybe he gets some of those minutes as well. But I think he's maybe more of I don't want to get too far into the weeds, but I think he maybe, if we're talking archetypes, maybe more of a Dane Erikstrip kind of archetype. Tall, but a little more of a shooter, less physical. So, anyway, yeah, I think that part's really interesting. And then Harrell's kind of our last guy we haven't talked about yet, who was signed. If I was going to write this in the newsletter, I'd probably still use the line, but like if we measure how good a guy is by how bummed out the fan base is to lose him. Like Providence fans are like stricken to be losing him. They are so bummed out. They are very upset. They had super high hopes for him. He's another guy who got injured, suffered a knee
Yep.
injury, I think.
Yep.
So they are like really, really, really bummed out to lose him. Crop is in that category as well. So that alone, never mind the fact he was a top 100 guy. That's why they liked him so much. You put those two things together, and I'm like, yeah, man, that feels really, really. Presuming he's healthy, that's exciting. That's top 100 guy. Like, I mean, somehow, some way, you got to have talent. And I think we learned that last year, right? Like,
Yeah.
You have to have a certain level of talent. And I always remember that was, when Kyle Smith showed up, I talked with him at the very beginning. It's not like I talked to him a lot, but just happened to do an interview with him right at the beginning. And it was really clear from talking to him. He was like, I can't recruit like I did at San Francisco. Like, I'm going to have to, if we're going to compete in this conference, I've got to recruit a different kind of player. Which is why, he didn't bring a bunch of guys with him from San Francisco. Right. And so it kind of, there are some guys in there where it's like, Roxburgh's one, right, from Manhattan, Ronnie Harrison, like you kind of got that where you're like, coming from a lower level. Okay. Maybe they bad roles or whatever. But like, there's also pretty clearly an effort here to up the actual like ability level. Even if maybe it doesn't come off or whatever, I do think it's a really good strategy when you add guys like Phillips and Harrell, and Crop, and you're talking like down transfers who maybe didn't perform up there, but there's a reason why they had what was considered to be a baseline level of talent to get to that level in the first place. And we got to have more of those guys. We can't take a chance on like 9 of those guys, right? Because maybe they all flame out, but you certainly got to mix in some, right? And we saw that with football too, where it was like the way they recruited in football. They tried to, get some down transfers, guys who, had a baseline level of talent and athleticism, and then maybe you try to coach them up. Maybe you can get more out of them. I think it's the right strategy. And I think the proportions are pretty good in terms of how many guys he got from the different areas. So I don't know, man. We're David Riley's biggest critics, but I think we got to hand it to him on this one so far.
Basically, in the category you're talking about, you got 4 guys that were former top 100 recruits that didn't really pan out at their first stop. And now I would say, I'm not necessarily saying, Laji Dembele, he doesn't quite fit the other 3 because he actually had a real solid season at Iowa.
Yeah.
That you can point to and say, actually, he has talent at a Big Ten level to be a positive player.
Yep.
So he's the one where like he has the highest floor of any of these guys, I would say. But yeah, like just especially at these wing 2-3 positions to get guys, that top 100 talent like Jones, Phillips, and Harrell, that where positions you're hoping to have a scorer, have a defender, be one of your top defenders, be one of your top scorers. Having guys that had that level athletic. I mean, you got to be an athlete to be in the top 100. You got to be a certain level of athleticism, certain level of ability in high school. So it's worth taking a risk on 3-4 of those guys, because if a couple of them hit. If they all hit, like you're looking good. But if a couple of them hit, like suddenly you have that type of talent that you could compete with the top level of the new Pac-12.
Yeah.
Some of the better, because there is some real quality programs in there.
Yeah.
And so this is I like that approach. Like I like this approach. It's because let's be honest, like. This is the basketball NAL is crazy, and the money that is being thrown around is nuts. Like there are guys, there's guys that left our team that are getting crazy dollars that are way beyond what we could pay. I've heard, we're more in like getting guys in the our top guys in like the $400,000 range, where like we had guys left there again like $1 million, and so
guys you wouldn't expect, by the way, Andy Okafor. right?
Yeah.
Like the market for bigs is like the market for bigs is insane. And really what it comes down to is what's interesting to me, and I think this is where, again, Riley, I think, is doing a good job of trying to find like the market inefficiencies, right? Like basically what all these coaches at the power levels have done is they're adding guys based off what they've done, right? So they looked at Andy Okafor and were like, he was productive, right? Like he was a productive player in a not terrible conference, right? The WCC is a perfectly respectable, sort of like upper mid-major type conference. He was okay. And so they look at that and they go, okay, if I add Andy Okafor, I know what I'm getting, right? Like, okay, but if we're talking from a Washington State perspective, where I watched Andy Okafor play, and you were like, okay, who's going to have a better year next year? Lajay Dembele, Tyler Kropp, or Andy Okafor? And I'd be like, I like our chances for one of our two guys to have
Yeah.
a better year than Andy Okafor. And not because Andy Okafor is like bad or anything like that, but like I watched him play. You watched him play. Like we know how limited he is.
Yeah.
Like he's not a particularly gifted offensive player. His offensive efficiency was below average because
especially if we're talking about what Riley is trying to do offensively.
yes, exactly. And if we're going to, if you're going to be camping in the paint kind of player, you better be making like 65% of your twos. And Okafor makes 58% of his twos, which is still a high number. But when you don't complement it with any threes, and so when I look at like Dembele and Kropp, I'm like, yeah, these are guys who have, I think, the potential to be really, really like nice offensive players. I mean, Dembele in particular, like you mentioned, he played at Iowa. Like, okay, his coach at Iowa was Fran McCaffrey. So that's like one of the, I don't know, 5 most offensive coaches in the country. Like, I don't know, how else to sort of classify him. I mean, that's why he ended up losing the job eventually was, like you can only get so far by being pretty much only offense, which of course we are learning, but it's like, incredibly brilliant offensive mind, like this guy, saw potential in him. And to me, that's like, I mean, that's a pretty good endorsement. Fran McCaffrey thinks you can play at a high major level, then, taking a chance on that guy coming back down after, having an injury issue for one season at UNLV is, again, I think a really good gamble to take. There's got to be, something in there that Fran McCaffrey saw. And, if he saw it, then I trust him. So, I think that's really good as well. Back to Harrell for just a sec. Like one of the things that we had such a hard time with this year, and I think most teams have a hard time with, is having a bucket getter, right? Like our bucket getter was Ace Glass, and that was, kind of here and there sometimes, and not for any other reason other than he's a 6'2" guard or whatever, like who doesn't get off the floor too much. Like those guys are, they have a tougher time sometimes. Harrell is he's 6'5", 210. Now he's listed as a small forward at Coug Fan, but he's listed as a guard on WSU's roster page. I think he's your starting 2 guard. And at 6'5" and 210, I was reading up on some scouting reports on him and things like that. They were talking about like, dude, this is a guy who's absolutely a shooting guard, but he's not going to beat you with athleticism, but he's strong. And so he can get to his spots on the floor. He can bump guys around. He can create space for his shot with his shoulders. And then, of course, at 6'5" at a shooting guard, like you're going to be able to rise up above, most defenders. I'm really excited to see him. Like,
Well,
I think he really could be like a 25 to 30% usage guy next year. High volume, high scoring, taking tons of shots. I mean, Cedric Coward, similar size. Like, you kind of saw he was able to get his shot inside, outside, all over the place. I think Harrell's going to be that guy. I'm really, really, really excited about him.
Yeah, and that's having a 2 guard of that size and all that. If it's going to be hard for them to have, based on what we just talked about with the way bigs are so valued in the NIL, it's gonna be hard for them to land those, because if you're talking about a 6'9" big from WSU got $1 million to go to the SEC, like that's like if a 6'9" dude is getting that, like
Right.
What hope does WSU to have land like a 7-footer
Right.
that's good? You
Right.
know, like it's tough.
Unless
And
they're coming
so
from another country, maybe.
yeah,
Like
exactly.
that's I think that's
So
kind of your option.
so if you're not gonna have if you can't have size down low, like you can now it's still gonna be tough to rebound, but you at least like gotta have size up top to defend the shots, make the
Mhm.
shots tougher, force more misses, all that stuff. And
Which
so
of
that
course has been an ongoing problem for 2
yes,
years.
ongoing problem. And also, you know, it helps obviously offensively, bigger force mismatches, especially like, you know, we are going, you know, will be a deeper league this year than we had last year, but it not necessarily going to be guys with like teams with huge guards everywhere.
Mhm.
And so that can be an advantage having a 6'5", 200-pound guard. That's a beast.
Yeah.
That's an NBA sized guard. Not saying he's an NBA quality guard, but
Right.
that's an NBA sized guard.
Yep.
And so yeah, that's that. Yeah, it, it's. I think you know we got to say that like these last few signings, I you know I it just seems like Riley has nailed them.
Yeah.
And it's going to
As good as
become
he can,
as
right?
good as he can, and I'm it's going to come down obviously to coaching him up, getting him to play,
Which is a big question mark.
hopefully play a little bit of defense, and
Eh, we'll see.
uh, yeah, but
We'll
yeah,
see.
you know, you gotta have athletes, you gotta have guys with skill,
Yeah.
and you know after you know the our last set that we looked at outside of RJ Jones, we were just like, okay, this is a lot of transfer up guys that you're hoping
Yeah.
that weren't even like stars from
Yeah.
like where they were transferring up from. So
Yeah.
you're like, these can't be like the go-to
Yeah.
guys
This
on the
can't be
team.
it, right?
And now obviously they are
Yeah.
not meant to be the go-to
Yeah.
guys on the team.
Yeah.
Not to say there isn't there, you know, there's you know, we talked about Lazar Houston and how he looks like he could be potentially very good as well,
Mm-hmm.
coming from D2.
Yep.
So it's looking like there is some talent there.
Yeah.
And so Riley will have some talent to work with. This is not going to be a barren roster.
Yeah.
Um, Now if you get those guys to play up, that's going to be what we see. We've seen Riley have talent before. His
Mhm.
first year at Wazoo, it had mixed results at best.
At
And
best.
and so we got to see. Hopefully, you know, hopefully it all works out because I just want a good basketball team, man.
Yeah. I want to
want a
have fun
fun team to
watching him
watch.
again, man.
And there's one more spot to fill, and still I will say like if I got to pick, it's gonna be like a 6'10", 6'11" dude who rebounds, and that is like
Yeah, they definitely need
that's
one more big. They definitely
yeah
need one more big, no doubt about that. Although I will say, I think that yes, they need one more big. They need a guy who can eat minutes at center if necessary. Like, you know, if you can't roll in with two centers and, you know, you don't expect to survive that if people get injured. But what I'll say is that I'm less concerned about the height, kind of for what you were talking about with like our guys who left, right? Because like if you are 6'8", I think one of the guys on Slack put it as like if you're 6'8" and have a pulse, you're getting $1 million. Like,
yeah
which you know, obviously we can't compete with that. But that also means that the other people in our conference, they're also not really competing with that either, right?
yeah
So
outside
it's
of
like,
Gonzaga.
yeah, outside of Gonzaga. So it's like, okay, yes, we're gonna have to deal with Braden Huff, you know, whatever, right? But it's like, you know, and maybe San Diego State has enough cash, you know, to retain, you know, a talented 6'9", 6'10" guy who's going to give us fits. Like, but I mean, it's a short list, right? It's a short list of teams in this conference that are paying the kind of money where they're going to be able to retain the kinds of guys like we lost, right? So, you know,
Right
6'9",
right
6'10", physical, good, you know, inside, outside, got the kind of guys that, I mean, those guys are gone, you know, they're not staying with the teams that we're playing. So like when we're running guys out there at 6'8", 6'9" at center, I mean, maybe that's undersized, but I'm actually kind of thinking we're probably going to find it's not actually that bad because everybody else is going to be running out probably 6'9", 6'8" guys in general because all their 6'10", 6'11" studs, they've all, gone for their payday. As all these Power 4 schools, try to stockpile 4 or 5 bigs. And honestly, that's what it seems like. They're all trying to stockpile 4 or 5 guys who are 6'9" and above, trying to follow that, that Florida formula that, where, hey, we're just going to recruit a whole bunch of giants and, good luck. Right. So,
Yeah.
and Michigan did, a very similar thing. So I think that's the trend right now. I think everybody's trying to do it. And so, perhaps that helped us out a little bit with, some of the stuff we talked about with some of the guards we got. So I'm less concerned about the size than maybe some other people might be, but I guess we'll see how it plays out.
Yeah, I hope bringing these guys and they can rebound, and rebounding is honestly uh, a philosophical thing as
Yeah.
much as it is a talent thing. We saw a Kyle Smith team where the top rebounder was your 6'7" small forward
Yeah.
who 6'6" small forward who went on to be to the NBA, but they would just basically have Jeff Pollard box out and not try to
Yes.
rebound. They would have the
Yes.
bigs box out and let CJ fly in, and he was a 22% rebounder his 1 year under Kyle Smith, which was crazy from a guy playing at essentially 2-3, the 2 or 3 position.
Yeah.
But that was just it's a philosophy. If you want to rebound, you can scheme up how to rebound. Like you
Yeah.
can now it's a lot easier if you're playing man, primarily man. You can really be like turn around, get your butt in a guy, and then let the guards come in and crash the boards. Now we had at times last year had to switch to a zone, just because didn't have the guys that could defend up top, and so hopefully getting some of this talent coming in at the 2 and the 3 can mitigate
Yeah.
some of that. But yeah, we're gonna have a basketball team next year, Jeff. There's a roster now, like
There
an
is.
almost entirely full roster of
Yeah.
basketball players.
Yeah.
We not a single one of them will have ever played a minute at Wazoo, besides Dio Blakely, but
Except for Dio Blakely. Dio
yeah,
Blakely. He's still around.
and he only played a few. Um,
Yes.
but yeah, so it's gonna be, this is just the new reality. Gotta
Yeah.
get
But it's not,
get to you
it's
get to
not
know the guys by the time they leave.
it's not the worst thing in the world, man. The team was pretty bad.
Mm-hmm.
It's, blowing it up and starting over, maybe not the worst thing in the world. So we'll see. I mean, there were some of those guys I definitely would have loved to have kept Tomas
Yeah.
Thrasterson. That's a guy who I think what's crazy about him is he hasn't signed anywhere yet.
Yeah.
Maybe he's thinking about going back to Europe. I think that seems like a
Yeah.
pretty, if he hasn't signed yet, I think that seems like a pretty likely, he's from Iceland, obviously, but he's probably got offers to go play in other European countries. So, yeah, I think the only time we might have to worry about rebounding, Craig, really, really worry about it, is when we make the new expanded NCAA tournament field. Then, of course, we're going to have to worry about facing all these teams
All right,
because now that
Riley,
now that we've got
Riley
a field
has
of 76,
8 more slots.
8 more slots to work with, which means last year we were only 90 spots. So, if we would have only been 90 spots away instead of 100 spots away last
Yeah.
year.
We would have almost had it.
We would have almost had it within 90 spots.
Now, Klay Thompson's last team at WSU probably would have had
Yeah,
it.
probably would have made it in. Yeah, with this new field.
There might have been a Kyle team in there that would have been closer, a little bit closer.
Perhaps. I don't know. Should we explain, by the way, for people who maybe haven't heard the news? Because I suppose that's possible that people are not as terminally online as we are.
So yeah, the NCAA tournament is officially expanding to 76 teams. Now it's how the bracket is going to look like, Jeff. Have you dug into that more than I have? I'm trying to remember. It was
I mean, there's going to be. I mean, it's basically going to be
just
the
how the
same. It's going to be the same as the first four, except they're just going to expand it now. You're going to have the same 2 days. It's going to be Tuesday, Wednesday. And you're just going to have more. It's going to include instead of just like 11 seeds for the last four in, it's going to include 12 seeds, and it's going to include all your 16 seeds instead of just the four worst of the 16 seeds or whatever you want to call it. Like, I don't even know how to say it, but it's like, so now you're going to have 8, probably 16 seeds battling it out for those spots. Anyway, it's whatever. I don't know. I'll be honest. Like, I am not as anti-expansion as most people are. I shouldn't say most. Almost everybody is. I think expansion, has honestly long made at least some sense. Ken Pomeroy loves to point out that, like, as a proportion of the size of Division I, which has expanded, tremendously since they went to 64/68 teams, right? He's like, as a proportion of Division I, 68 teams is like a really small number. And so he's like, in most other playoffs within Division I or Division II or FCS or whatever, a greater percentage of the teams make the playoff, right? And of course, then we got pro teams in their leagues. They sometimes, they're making like 50% of the teams, are making the tournament, whatever it is. So in that respect, I'm like, that sort of resonated with me intellectually, where I was like, okay, yeah, that kind of makes some sense, having some more teams in. Now, where I think it's absolutely impossibly stupid, why are you doing, 76 teams or whatever, like whatever it is? Like, why are you not just like, why fuck around with like these like half measures and middle whatever? Like, oh, we're going to go to 68 because like we gave out a couple more automatic bids and nobody wants to lose the at-large bid, so we're just going to expand the field by fucking 4 teams. It was like the dumbest thing then, and the idea of expanding it, to this now is also stupid. Like, just go to 96. Like, if they had gone to 96, I'd be like, hell yeah, let's go. Let's just do a whole nother round and call it good. And then, everything's nice and symmetrical. It's a bracket that makes sense. Like, why not just do that? Why do this stuff? Why do these little stupid incremental things where now people have to like squint at their bracket to figure out what the hell's going on? And on that level, you end up ruining, obviously, some of the magic of March Madness.
Well, yes, I get what you're saying, Jeff. 96 logically makes more sense, but who are the power players in this?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Do the Big
We know
Ten and
who's
SEC want 96? No. 76 is just fine. They're going to get all the teams they need in there. You expand to 96. Now you're talking about the Pac-12. It could be a 5-6 bid league because they're just having to fill it out. Or you're, like, it's 76. It's 8 is not going to be like it's not going to feel like a ton more, I don't think. Because that's basically, you're just absorbing the bubble of teams that people thought had a chance to get in now. Like, every year, there's always that next 4 out, first
Right.
4 out, next 4 out. And you could always make a case for one of those teams in the next 4 out. Now, what it's going to suck, which we already saw a little bit this year because the super conferences, you're going to have potentially even more Big Ten, SEC teams, Big 12 teams in there, and you're gonna have some like fucking 17 and 13, like some like 15 loss at large teams in there, and that I know for a lot of people it's hard to swallow, and I get it. Like, you're just seeing this like fucking Mississippi State's in there, and it's like they're 18 and 17, like, what the hell? Like, and they got an at-large bid because they
Auburn this year, right?
Yeah, they beat Florida one time or whatever. It's like, it's so annoying that they're getting like an opportunity to rack up a few more quad 1 wins that like I was glad that Miami, Ohio got in this year. I understood why, like, if they would have left them out, I'm so glad they put them in, because like they won the games that were in front of them. Like they lost
Yes.
one damn game,
Yes.
and so like hopefully there's more of that,
Yes.
and rewarding teams that are winning who potentially can, because it's tougher. Like those conferences have 20 game schedules now, plus a conference tournament. There's
Yep.
only 10 other games to play with. They're either playing other big conferences in
Mhm.
those games, or they're playing absolute body bag 300 plus Ken Palm games.
Yes.
And that's it. It's really tough. Now WSU, it got announced to be in a tournament with quite. This would be that's a real opportunity to play some of these
Mhm.
teams. The Acrisure tournament. There's going to be quite a few potential NCAA tournament teams. There's some big conference teams in there. That's going to be your way to get those,
Yeah.
because even like those big teams aren't even going to want to have like the Pac-12 teams come on the road to play them,
Right.
unless it's
Right.
Gonzaga,
Right.
because you're not getting any hit if you lose to Gonzaga.
Right.
But they're not going to want like a like a potentially like number 40 ranked San Diego State come in and potentially beat them, and that becomes a quad 2 loss.
Right.
It's not even a quad. It can't even be a quad 1 win.
Right.
And so there, because that's what we're looking at. You want those quad 1s.
Yep.
And remember, to be a quad 1 at home, the team has to be in the top 30. And so they're not going to be looking to schedule a lot, because you have no guarantee that Colorado State and San Diego State are going to be top 30 teams, when you could just schedule one of an SEC team or something that much more likely to just stumble into a top 30.
Right.
So it's all been math. Obviously, people have been gaming the RPI for years before it was RPI. Now they're gaming the net and gaming
Yep.
the quads, the quad 1, quad 2, all that stuff. So that's going to be tough. Like, are they going to be valuing for those last 8 bids those those teams that got 14 cracks at a quad 1 win and got 4 of
Right.
them,
And got 4.
or got 3 and 11, but one team only got 4 cracks at a quad 1 win,
Right.
and they didn't get any, or they got 1 or something.
Yeah.
That's where it is, like, because what we saw this year, like with NIL, the top teams are so overloaded,
Mhm.
and it was there was far fewer upsets in those early rounds.
Mhm.
So you know what? Let these smaller schools get into the play-in round, and so
Yeah.
they can play each other, have some fun before
Yeah.
they get their goddamn
And they'll still
asses
get
kicked in.
the tourney unit. Like
Yes,
that's part of the
exactly.
deal, is you get the units. The units are all worth the same amount, right? So it doesn't matter which round you're in, they're all worth the same. So that part's all good. Our friend John Gassaway, not really my friend at this point, but like a guy who we used to write with.
We used to know him.
We used to know him back in the day. He was
If
our
you said
editor.
our names to him, he might remember
I
them.
think he would remember us. I really do. He was a ESPN insider writer for years, Basketball Prospectus, edited the publication that Craig and I wrote for. God, that's be like 10 years ago at this point. But my name and your name does appear on the same page, author list, with Ken Pomeroy. So we are officially in the same ballpark. Drew Cannon. We are in the same ballpark as those guys. Probably a lot of our listeners have never heard of that guy. You should probably look him up. Anyway, what John Gassaway said, and I think it's a good point. He's like, yes, you're going to get more Big Ten and SEC teams. You definitely are, like that, and because that's the whole reason for this. And side note, the thing that honestly pisses me off the most about this is nobody was pushing for this until these conferences, by their own fucking choice, bloated the shit out of themselves. Like, that is why.
Yeah.
Like, when all of these conferences were like, somewhat reasonably evenly distributed with conferences between like 10 and 12 teams. Nobody was asking for this because it was like, okay, we've got this sort of like even distribution of teams. We've got these conferences that are kind of above and these, okay, great. And, about this many teams make it from this conference each year and about this many teams make it from these kinds of conferences.
Yeah.
And it's like there was just a very sort of normal cadence to it. Well, now that the Big Ten's got 18 fucking teams, like it's two conferences. It's
And the
two
SEC,
conferences, right? Like these are not one conference. These are two conferences in one conference. Right. And so, in the SEC, oh shit, we're just so epically difficult to play in. True. Right. Yes, that's true. Because you fucking made it that way, you dipshits. Like you should have to own that. And they don't, right? They just whine until they get what they want. I mean, we'll probably talk about, football's talking about expanding theirs too. And it's like, you just fucking whine until you get what you want, until you get everything that you ever.
They're mad.
They're mad that they made a giant fucking conference that meant some of their teams are going to get left out because they beat each other. Well, boo-hoo.
If you look at like, say, for example, UW in the Big Ten last year, they got their asses
great
kicked.
Example.
But UW was they were number 52 on KenPom.
Yes.
That's a team that's usually
bubble territory.
Is on the fringe
that's bubble territory
of the tournament. That's bubble territory, but they had no shot. Like they finished 16-17. They were 7-13 in the league. They had a big win over Ohio State. But they, they had another quad one over Northwestern. They had, some decent wins on the resume, but no one's putting a goddamn 16-17 team in. And they were never on the bubble at any point throughout the year.
But if they
were in the old Pac-12,
yes.
But
also this is the thing. If you are like talking about them in this expanded tournament, okay, what if they beat Penn State, Maryland, and Oregon? Right? Those are 3 games against 3 terrible teams that they should have beat. They win those 3 games. All of a sudden they are now 19-14 and they are 10-10 in the Big Ten. They're in that fucking tournament in the expanded field next year. And that's what the Big Ten wants, is they want that.
Well, and just on the we're talking about wins and losses, like in one of the down years of the old Pac-12, when Mike Hopkins won the Pac-12 with UW, that team was 48 on KenPom.
Yep.
And this team was 52 last year, and that team went 27-9. Like like you said, like the conference is so bloated. They're playing nonstop top 30, top 50 teams in their league, and if they don't get all of those gimmies you mentioned, if they don't get both games against Oregon, if they don't beat Maryland, they're staring down the barrel at a losing, obvious losing conference schedule. Like they played 23 Wisconsin at home, 28 UCLA on the road, 22 Iowa at home, number 5 Illinois on the road, 16 Nebraska on the road, 10 Michigan State at home, number 1 Michigan, number 8 Purdue on the road, number 45 Indiana on the road. Like they just nonstop games.
There was an 11-game stretch where they played 10 A-rated teams on KenPom, which is a top 50 team adjusted for location, right? So in 11 games, they played 10 top 50 teams. That's insane. And also, whose fucking fault is it that you were playing all those top because you chose this shit. You should own it instead of whining for more bids. But that's, the American way. It's the American way. It is to whine until you get what you want. That's it. The people who are in control are like, oh, we're so tough. We're so tough. We like, we're tough. We own our mistakes. We're very fucking accountable, man. And it's like, no, you're not. Look around our society. The biggest fucking whiners, the biggest fucking losers are the people who already have shit. So, yeah, like this is just more of that. That's all it is.
More of that. least they got their half share, which they're just
Yeah.
fine. Is bigger than they would have gotten.
Congratulations. Get your
It's
half
bigger than
share
they
to
would
get
have
your ass
gotten.
kicked in the Big Ten in football and basketball. Great job. Soccer, they're good at soccer. I'll give them that. Washington is good at soccer. I'm sure that's great comfort to the Husky fans out there.
Yes, they got a national title. I'm sure they
Yay.
all just they all the people
of
in their
Seattle,
starter jackets.
I don't know, Craig. Do you remember the parade they had in Seattle for the men's soccer team that won
Yeah, that
the
was a huge
national
one.
championship? I don't recall. Did they have one?
Yeah, come on, Jeff, you weren't there.
Yeah. Anyway.
But yeah, so on the same vein, there are also rumors that the college football playoff is looking to expand again to 24 teams.
That's fucking wild.
With eight teams getting byes and 9 through 24 playing campus games.
Yep.
To start, which I'll all for that. More campus playoff games, dude. That's college football all the way. But again, in this rumored proposal, how many guaranteed bids is the group of 6 going to be given?
You only get one guess,
One.
Craig. Just one guess.
One.
I know, it's fucking ridiculous.
The same amount that they have currently in the 12-team playoff.
Yes.
So we're still saying, half the teams in the country get 1, and the other half get 23.
23.
Which is a significant portion of those.
They're not guaranteed. They're not guaranteed 23, right? Like,
yeah.
I'm not just like with basketball expansion, I'm not as pessimistic as other people are, but maybe you are.
How many group of 6 teams in any given year, especially in this new atmosphere, do you think will land in the top 24?
Last year it would have been 2. Would have been Tulane and James Madison, and North Texas was 25. So 2, maybe 3. So, and I think in any given year, you're probably looking at 2 or 3. That'd be my guess.
So the very pessimistic sentiment that I've seen, that I don't dismiss out of hand, to tell you the truth, is that if the college football playoff is on the line and those rankings actually mean you are getting into the tournament, the committee might be ranking the teams differently and not giving James Madison as much credit for beating a 500 Wazoo team at home.
Yeah, I mean, given that we keep saying this all the time, but given that the CFP is a made-for-TV event, right? It's not actually a championship. It's not actually like a championship, right? The NCAA does not administer this thing. So at least with basketball, when we talk about like who might get in, who might not in this expanded thing, it's like we can point to decades of selection. We could like we kind of know that, like as John Gasway said, you're gonna get more mid-major teams in, even though, you're gonna get more Big Ten and SEC teams. You're still gonna get more mid-majors in, and that's good. In this case, I do think that's a valid concern because like it is the big conferences that are honestly setting all the rules, because this is not a NCAA administered event. There are not going to be, as we've seen over the years, right? Like it's the criteria for selection is pretty opaque. It's pretty malleable, pretty flexible. So I do think there is something to be said for that, for sure. But I also think that, I don't know, like I just don't, I mean, if they're going to look at that and go, if you're going all the, I think okay, let me rephrase. I think the incentive to leave out mid-majors is much higher when there's only like 12 teams. Like, when you're talking about all those precious spots and you've only got 12 of them, Like there's a lot more pressure to make sure, or at least try to make sure that like, okay, we really need as many of these to go to these 4 conferences as possible, and particularly as many to go to these 2, right? But if you're talking 24, I just think the pressure to include as many SEC and Big Ten teams as possible, I think that gets reduced. I really do. And I think honestly, I think 24 opens up more opportunity, particularly for, I mean, this is a WSU podcast, particularly for more schools like WSU, right? Pac-12 schools. I think you're looking at 2 minimum of those group of 6 schools. I think you're looking at 2 minimum getting in a 24 team field. And I think you're probably looking at 3 most of the time getting in there. I just think that it would be nice if there were auto bids, right? Like I think it should just be 24 teams, conference champs all get in, and then go from there. Like I think that's what it ought to be. But I think I think in practice, that is how it's going to. It's obviously not going to totally set up that way because not all 6 teams are getting in. But I think in practice, I think your top 3 conference champs are probably getting in. And I think I don't know that it's extremely instructive to look at the rankings all the way down right now from last year, simply because I think we saw this like when, in 2018, I think we saw this where it was just like, okay, look, we only care about these spots. And after that, like, whatever, we're just going to kind of throw them in an order and who fucking cares?
Yeah.
Like, so I think when it matters, I think you're going to see a little more seriousness paid to it. And I do think it's going to matter a little bit more. So I don't know. Maybe I'm just way too optimistic. Typically I'm like incredibly cynical. But I think more spots means more access, more opportunity. And ultimately I think that's a good thing for Wazoo and the Pac-12.
Yeah, absolutely. And, to that point, we're talking about Wazoo. Jeff, you were asking me if I wanted to talk about this. Let's go ahead and talk about it. Obviously,
okay, if you want.
The leadership at Wazoo is going to be so important heading into this new era, in the Pac-12 era, in a conference that we helped build, that we should very much be able to compete in all sports.
Yeah.
And critically, obviously, having a leader like Cantwell who very much cares about sports, seems to already be having an impact, to be honest. If we're looking at the players that the football team is signing, like there's more money in that program than there has been in the past. Like you can guarantee it. And that's got to be a leadership driven element there. And again, Jeff, I've been reading through your piece on Jon Haarlow taking the interim tag off, being made the official AD of Wazoo. I think your skepticism, your initial skepticism of, hey, we're just promoting from within again, not exactly the best process, is spot on. But it was getting a bit concerning when we saw this search go on for so long, and there were no real names being rumored. It got to the point where you kind of just assumed that Haarlow was going to be the guy, just because you're just like, you're not hearing those rumors. That, and it maybe the job wasn't, it's a bit scary of a
maybe
job.
They forgot to put it on Indeed. I don't know. Like,
that
somebody
LinkedIn,
forgot to post it. I don't know.
The LinkedIn posting didn't go through, or just wasn't promoted well enough. Promoted to the wrong people.
I think that was it.
As someone who's looking for a job, I'll tell you that the LinkedIn algorithm is really shitty at sending you jobs that have anything to do with what you have done in the past. So maybe that posting was getting sent to the wrong people. I wouldn't have been surprised if I would have been sent, director of athletics.
You seem like a big, sports fan. Maybe you'd be interested in this job.
Yeah, like, yeah, of course. But yeah, like, but some of the yeah, to take a more positive spin on it, eh, what WSU needs is someone who's gonna have excitement
Hmm.
and effort
Yeah.
and care for the university. I think Haarlow ticks those boxes. Um, is he going to be you know, the fundraiser that Chun was, who's probably of our recent ADs, probably the best fundraiser that they've had? Um, is he going to be like just like the firebrand, but like Moose was on the national and conference level? Probably not, but like but maybe, but if Camwell, who very much values sports, saw that he could do it,
Hmm.
uh, I guess like we gotta accept it, wait and see, and he says the right things,
Hmm.
and and he definitely has like a very different vibe from Anne McCoy, obviously.
Yeah. I mean, there's some
And
charisma there, right? Like
yeah, like he doesn't seem as much the pragmatist and kind of lifetime administrator
yeah.
that could, make sure, which was she was meant to just make sure this thing stays in place
Yep.
during this crazy time,
Yeah.
and which that was done, and now we're going into a new conference. We need excitement. We need someone that knows that this is a conference that WC should be a leader in, across sports, as generally as an athletics program, and he seems to have that idea now, and he seems to have the energy, and he seems to have the care, and he seems to know that connecting with the alumni base is very important. Um, and so we'll see how that plays out.
Hmm.
But it just seems like were they looking beyond? I'm sure they were. Maybe they were having trouble finding someone because of the uncertainty of moving into a new conference, whatever, what have you. But that doesn't discount immediately what Haarlow can do, and
Yeah.
we'll see.
Yeah. And for me, I was like, I, you know, I didn't want to discount him off the top just because he was promoted from within. Like there's, as I wrote about in the newsletter, wasn't thrilled in the sense that like you cannot convince me on an intellectual level that 2 times in a row the very best person for the job has already been at WSU. Like that just defies probability. So, but again, yes, maybe there's somebody better out there, but can you find him? Can you land him? Can you get him here? Right. Easier said than done. So I don't want to say that he's going to be a bad AD just because, like, I think the process should have been different. Like, that's not the case. Maybe he'll be great. And a lot of indicators are good, right? We only see the outward facing stuff. So we only see the stuff when he gets in front of a microphone and, those kinds of things. So far, so good on that. I do like, if there's one thing I can say I really do like about him and his history at WSU is he's not he has actually worked in upper campus before. That was his job a couple of years ago. He was doing finance stuff there, which I do think that's kind of valuable, particularly in this environment where Betsy Cantwell is looking for somebody to basically be in lockstep with her because she's the one who's in charge. Like we can talk about Jon Haarlow, whatever, but like Betsy Cantwell, if we're being honest, like she is the one that's calling the shots on this. She is directing the way the campus is moving forward through this time. It's her vision, it's her plan. It's everybody else's job to carry it out.
Hmm.
And Jon Haarlow seems to understand that. Again, he's got experience working with upper campus, which means he's got experience working directly with the president already. Outside of this, these last 6 months as interim. So, I think it's good. Hopefully that translates, into fundraising. Hopefully it translates into fresh ideas. sometimes, folks who are lifers in the athletic department kind of get, boxed into, a similar set of ideas. And I think if we've seen anything from, if we're just talking about, like, for example, the game day experience,
Yep,
just doing
I
the
was
same
just
thing
about to say that.
doesn't work, right? It's not going to work.
Yeah.
And you got to do some different things. You got to do some new things. You got to be willing to take some risks. I don't know what those are. My main suggestion was call up the fucking banana ball guy and get him to come, pay him $100,000 to come be a consultant or something, but like get him on the horn to revamp this whole fucking thing. But it's like, we got to make that better. There's a lot of things we got to make better.
Well,
And
and it does
so,
seem like that's just on a baseline, that the game day experience had fallen off so much. Stuff they brought in, like playing Sweet Caroline. Like, come on, what that
yeah,
has like what that like did you obviously like did
like,
you
what
ask
is this, Fenway
AI
Park? Like, what are we
like to
doing
tell you
here?
to do that? Like but it does seem like they're promising like there's going to be improvements. Number one, they're replacing the video board, which is years past due.
Oh my
That
God, that
thing
poor thing.
that thing was hanging on for dear life. It was pretty funny. What my favorite part of the spring game Slack was people just saying, like, giving it its basically giving it its eulogy, like just talking like all the giant pixels that you could see. It's like that thing starting to fail as we
Yeah.
were being relegated,
Yes.
essentially, like,
That was
was like,
bad
oh my
timing.
god,
Yeah.
our fancy
Great
video board
metaphor
is
though.
now like
Yeah.
is now matching our level,
Yeah.
and this is
Yeah. Yeah.
terrible. But yeah, apparently, new lighting, and I don't know, like, just lean into more things that maybe are unique, and not just
Yeah.
generic stuff. Like, even a lot of people didn't even like, they did like a knockoff of the hot dogs from heaven. They were doing a knockoff of that at the football games, and people were like, it's like a Mariners thing, like,
Yeah.
pretty obviously. They called it
Yeah.
like glizzy gliders or something.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, and it's like, oh,
Yeah.
cool, like, it's not really the
Yeah.
same. But yeah, like, you obviously you hit it with back home. There's, find some more ideas that
Yeah.
people make people
You got to
like
make it
the
fun,
in-game
right? Like, it's
experience.
got to, we keep saying over and over, whatever you do in stadium, it's got to be better than home. It's got to be better than people's living
Mhm.
room, right? You got to give people a reason to want to
Need
go
shorter
because,
beer lines. And
yeah. And
Old
like,
Crimson needs to stop
yes,
costing $11 in the
yes, that's
club.
insane.
Why the hell does Old Crimson cost
Yes.
$11?
A 12-ounce beer.
A 12-ounce beer that also is not, it's not priced at other craft beer levels. Like,
Yeah.
I had someone text me during the game and be like, is Old Crimson always $11 in the club? And I said, yes, like, it is
Yes.
always
Yes.
$11 in
It's
the
crazy
club.
pants. You'd feel better if like that meant that like $4 of it was going to NIL, but that's not the case. So,
No.
but yeah, I mean, just you got to make the day worth it, right? One of the things they talked about, I think Haarlow was on a podcast today. I think it might have been the Inside Cougar Athletics. I didn't listen to it, but somebody mentioned, he's talking about expanding tailgate. I love that
Yes.
idea.
Yes.
Right? Like really, it has to. I think part of the reason why, I mean, we could probably talk for an hour on this alone, but like, I do think that part of the reason why football is so supreme in this country is that every game feels like an event, and you've got to really, really, I think, lean into the game being an event. Like, the game not being the game has to be part of the event, right? The game itself is not the event. The event is everything that comes before the game for hours and everything that comes after the game for hours, and all of that is the event. The game is just like kind of the peg for the event. And so, talking about things like, expanding tailgate opportunities for people, making it easier for people to come and spend all day in Pullman. I think those things really matter, especially if we're trying to get people from Spokane. I mean, if it takes you an hour and 15 or an hour and 20 minutes to drive to the game and then an hour and 20 minutes or not, well, probably longer than that with traffic getting out of town, right? Like let's say an
Yeah.
hour and a half trying to get out. Okay, I mean you're giving up 3 hours of your life for a 3 to 4 hour football game. Like they're like when you and I go to Sounders games, I kind of talk about this when I talk about it. I'm like, you and I go to Sounders games. We don't just go and head into the stadium. We get up there 2 hours early. We go hit a bar, have a few beers, just kind of hang out, talk about life because we don't see each other enough, right? Like, so it's
Yeah.
like, we do all those things. It's the game is important, but the game is not the only thing we're there for. It's these other, which of course,
Well,
side note, if
ex,
they ever
ex,
build a stadium in Renton, we'll lose all that, but whatever.
yes.
It's like that stuff matters. And I think WSU is thinking about the right things by trying to, I think, lean into the idea that the entire day is the event, not just the game. You're not just coming to Pullman for the game. Maybe that works on the locals. Maybe we can get more locals to come, just for the game. But if we're talking about people coming to town, you got to make it easier and more fun for people to be there all day.
Yeah, absolutely. That's, I always say, like, Pullman is undefeated when I leave, even when the Cougs lose, and yeah, expanding tailgating options. Maybe having, designating, reaching out to some people like Matt Mira at Marco Polo. He'll host tailgates, and anyone can come. More of those, more publicized versions of those, because I know I've talked to some alums who are like, I just, I'd love to do the tailgating, but I don't have anyone to go. I don't, they're not just going to go wander up
Yeah.
to random
Well,
people.
that's the culture, right? Like we're Washingtonians. We're not just gonna like roll up on
Yeah,
somebody's tailgate and be like, "Can I hang out?" Like we're just not gonna do that, But we want to
and
create that kind of
and
environment, right?
as much as they want to think it is, like, the field house is not the same. The Coug Zone or whatever it's called, like it on the practice field's not the same. It's not the same as going out into the parking lot
Totally.
with a cooler of beer
Yes.
and just putting them away, and
Yes.
stand around chatting with people, playing
Totally.
cornhole, whatever, playing drinking games,
Yep.
all that stuff. That's the stuff I love about it, and the Kook in Valhalla can only hold so many people, and
Right.
as people have Alex and Michael have complained about,
As we
particularly,
know. As
Valhalla's
we
been
know.
very strict about when they open, and even for a midday game, are still only opening at noon. There's only so many,
Yes.
because I know a lot of alums just go straight to the Coug, but the Coug gets so overwhelmed
I
on
mean,
game day,
how
like,
many people can pack into the Coug? Like
yeah,
150?
yeah,
It ain't
like,
much.
maybe.
Maybe.
I mean,
I mean, if we're
sometimes I'm
like at
like,
capacity, right?
is this does the fire code have like special rules for the Coug? Because like you're just
Yes.
like sitting there like
I
this.
think the answer is yes.
But there's like
Yes.
there's football weekends where the beer line goes to the back of the
Yes.
room and then
Oh yeah.
wraps out and goes out the front door.
Oh yeah.
And like that's because so many people, they don't have anything else to do when they
Right.
come in. I think like expanding tailgating, more opportunity for people who are only there for the day to do some tailgating,
Yeah.
and opening opportunities. It's like, this is a public tailgate. And I know
Yeah.
they did that. Cougs First does that. Publicize those more. And maybe those, athletic department and Cougs First, come together more over time. We could see more of that. Because yeah, like, it's the reason I love going to Pullman so much isn't because I desperately need to be in the stadium for a football game. It's the whole experience
Yes.
around it. And so many Cougs want that. They want, I've went with Cougs who haven't been back for a decade, and they're just so excited when they get to spend a weekend there. Like maybe their kid just went, or maybe I'm just dragging them and saying, "Hey, I have a place for us to stay. Let's go."
Yeah.
Like, it's in. I bring random friends, and I'm already talking to some other friends like, who, we got to go. You got to see this Pullman weekend, and I want everyone to experience that. And you get this connection back with the university, and that ultimately, like, that's what drives donations and everything. you have to feel that connection. And so I think anything they can do to improve that is better. All right, Jeff, this has been, we are an hour and a half. We haven't even talked about beer. I did not, this is an off-season podcast. Good Lord.
I had a Freem Pilsner.
Jeff, what are you drinking?
I had a
Is that
Freem
just-
Pilsner.
That was, oh,
I had
wow.
two Freem Pilsners.
What a
They were
unique
good.
beer. I've
Yes.
never heard of that.
I know, it's very good. What are you drinking?
I'm having Mirage. It's a brewery in Seattle.
There we go.
It's called Slasher. It's got a real creepy barn on it. It's a Cascadian Dark Ale,
Okay.
which is another name for that is a black IPA.
Yes.
Brewed with, or also a Vermont Porter. Brewed with Simcoe T90 and Chinook Incognito. Well, that's a cool, like Chinook Incognito. I have to look up what that is. I don't know. And dry hopped with Chinook T90, Mosaic T90, Cascade Cryo, and Eclipse Abstracts. This is some wild. I don't even know what half of that shit is now. I got to catch up on my hops stuff. But yeah, Mirage is a good brewery. They haven't been like these Canon shit. Like they have been Canon shit, but these new labels and stuff, they're getting fancier. Good stuff. Black IPAs are like fully back, and I'm really enjoying it. I love the style when it first came out, and then I soured on it, much like with hazy IPAs. But now, like the black IPAs are back, and I'm really loving it. I have another one from Holy Mountain in the fridge. But this is very tasty. But also, I don't know if anyone who's watching on video noticed, I was picking stuff out of my teeth at some point. There was definitely some like chunks of hops or something in the bottom of this getting stuck in my teeth.
Well, that's fun.
So all those hops I was reading did not all get filtered out. But very tasty, very hoppy with that roasty malt character. That's what you're looking for in those black Cascadian Dark Ales, black IPAs, Vermont Porters. The name is much disputed. But yeah, so Jeff, I will say one more quick thing before we end this. Baseball has a pretty big series, their final series of the year. They're playing at Air Force. There is conference tournament seeding on the line, a potential bye in the conference tournament on the line. They are one game back of Air Force, so they would need to win that series. That would put them at number 2.
They would need to sweep to take second outright. They win 2 out of 3. They would be tied for second. I don't know how the tiebreaker works. So,
yeah, I would assume that it would be head to head, but you never know.
Yes,
but yeah,
never know. But that would make the most sense.
So if they can get that bye, that makes a big deal because obviously that win the Mountain West tournament. And
can you imagine we make an NCAA tournament, my man?
That would be amazing.
We're gonna all of a sudden become baseball experts, WSU baseball experts again.
But yeah, it has been a pretty fun season. The team actually winning some games again, doing more of what you would expect, in like the Mountain West, a league that Oregon State felt too good to be in.
Yes,
obviously they're independent. But yeah, so big series this weekend. If not, the next weekend is the tournament, and they're one of the top teams in the league, and so
they'll pretty much be in the tournament no matter what. We just want that. We want that. We want that bye.
I'm talking the conference tournament. We're saying
yes.
They'll be in the tournament. But yeah, so yeah, exciting. Interesting times in WSU baseball. But yeah, Jeff. I'm impressed we made an hour and a half out of this. Always good times. You can get us ranting about the broader state of college basketball. That can always eat up some time.
That's always you get us talking about college basketball. Where does the time go, Craig? Where does the time go? I don't know. But all I know is that go fucking Cougs. Go fucking Cougs, Craig. Black Lives Matter. By the way, we're gonna end up getting way ahead of the music here, but that's okay. Black Lives Matter, Craig. Black Lives Matter. Well, you bought us some time there, anyways. So I should tell people to like and subscribe. That's a good one. So whatever service you're on, if you're on YouTube, like and subscribe. If you're on a podcast, make sure you subscribe. So podcastvseveryone.com. Subscribe to the newsletter. Yeah. All right. Anything else? Join a union. Support a union. Get vaccinated. Stop killing innocent people in the Middle East.
Free Palestine. Fuck ICE.
Fuck ICE. All right.